In the 2000s, a dessert empire was born. It was built on a wild, theatrical dream of pure, unadulterated chocolate. We're talking chocolate pizzas topped with marshmallows, fondue sets that looked like chemistry experiments, and strange, handleless mugs that were designed to be hugged and not just held. At its peak, it was a global phenomenon, a cultural touchstone for birthdays, first dates, and post-movie celebrations. It felt unstoppable. And then, almost overnight, it all came crashing down. Mass closures, fiery political protests, and a shocking bankruptcy left a trail of melted chocolate and broken dreams. But how did a simple chocolate bar become the center of an international controversy? How did it go from being on top of the world to vanishing from our street corners? And most importantly, how did it pull off one of the most unlikely comebacks in food history thanks to a mysterious movie mogul? This is the story of the friendly bald man who sold the world a chocolate fantasy. This is the incredible rollercoaster ride of Max Brenner. First, let's clear this up. Max Brenner doesn't exist. The name was a portmanteau, a blend of the company's two founders, Max Fichtman and Oded Brenner. In 1996, these two Israeli chocolatiers launched a boutique chocolate shop in Ranana, just north of Tel Aviv. It began as a small, humble shop selling handmade European-style truffles and pralines. But Oded Brenner, the more creatively driven of the two, had a vision that went far beyond a simple retail counter. His passion for chocolate was deeply personal. Brenner had spent 6 years in Paris, training under chocolate masters, where he learned to truly revere the art of chocolate making. He returned to Israel with an almost evangelical zeal, completely convinced that chocolate was so much more than a product. He believed it was an experience, comfort, and nostalgia. He wanted to create what he called a new chocolate culture. A place you sat down, got messy, and soaked in the smell of cocoa. This was the birth of the Max Brenner chocolate bar. And to sell this new culture, he needed branding. Out came that iconic, bald, bespectacled cartoon man, a sort of friendly monk who had dedicated his life to the gospel of cocoa. This bald man became the symbol of a brand that would soon sell a feeling more than a food. The theatricality was everywhere. They designed custom, ridiculously shaped ceramic cups. There was the kangaroo cup with a little pouch for chocolate, and of course the hug mug, a handleless cup shaped like a kidney bean, designed so you had to hold it with both hands, literally hugging your hot chocolate. This, combined with fondue sets that looked like chemistry equipment and a menu that read like a dessert manifesto, made the whole Max Brenner experience pure theater. It was Instagrammable long before Instagram was even a thought, and it got attention. By 2001, the concept had caught the eye of the Strauss Group, one of Israel's largest food and beverage conglomerates. They saw the global potential. Strauss bought the company, and with serious corporate backing, Max Brenner was ready to take its chocolate-soaked vision to the rest of the world. And the very first stop on that global tour was Australia. When Max Brenner opened its first Australian store in Sydney's hip Paddington neighbourhood in 2000, it was an absolute sensation. For a generation raised on the familiar comforts of local cafes, Lamingtons and Tim Tams, this new chocolate bar felt like Disneyland for dessert lovers. It was seen as sophisticated and imported, yet at the same time it was ridiculously and unapologetically fun. The menu was a catalogue of pure excess. Giant steaming hug mugs of hot chocolate, chocolate pizzas topped with marshmallows, towers of waffles, and the infamous chocolate syringes filled with fudge that you were encouraged to shoot directly into your dessert, or, let's be real, your mouth. It was extra in every single possible way, and by the late 2010s, Max Brenner had expanded to over 37 stores across the country. While it wasn't cheap, it always made people feel special. Its story took an interesting turn as, starting around 2011, Max Brenner stores became an unexpected and highly visible flashpoint for international political activism. The boycott, divestment, and sanctions movement, better known as BDS, advocates for economic pressure on Israel over its policies towards Palestinians. The movement targeted Max Brenner because of its owner, the Strauss Group. That tied Max Brenner, fairly or not, to the politics of its Israeli owner. And in a world where perception alone can sink a brand, the name was now linked to conflict. For a dessert bar built on pure feel-good vibes, that association was poison. Behind the political drama, the Australian business was straining. The novelty that had once drawn massive crowds was, inevitably, wearing off. Rent in prime retail locations was rising and production costs were high. To make matters worse, dessert trends themselves were rapidly shifting. The mid-2010s saw the explosion of new food crazes, all amplified by the rise of Instagram. Consumers were trading in heavy, rich desserts for new, photogenic experiences. In this new world, Max Brenner suddenly looked dated. It was a giant, glorious, heavy monument to the 2000s era. It was all about gluten, dairy, and mountains of sugar. What once felt indulgent now just felt heavy. It was the dessert equivalent of a flip phone in an iPhone world. By October 2018, Max Brenner Australia, the company that owned and operated all the Australian stores, went into voluntary administration. It was a stunning fall from grace. For a moment, it looked like that was really the end of the bald man in Australia. But then, just a month later, an unlikely savior emerged. Roy Mustaka entered the scene. Mustaka is an Australian businessman who made his fortune running United Cinemas, a popular cinema chain known for its plush, gold-class style movie experiences. Mustaka's expertise in cinemas placed him completely outside the world of chocolate and restaurants. But when Max Brenner collapsed, he saw an opportunity that the food industry insiders had apparently missed. Through his company, Mustaka bought the remaining Australian Max Brenner brand and operations out of receivership. His strategy was simple. He wisely avoided any ambitions of rebuilding a global empire and instead focused on bringing the brand back in a leaner form. This meant fewer stores, smarter operations, and lower overheads. He wanted to create a sustainable version of Max Brenner, one that could thrive financially while holding on to the core identity that made it popular in the first place. It was a gamble, but Mustaka had identified a crucial synergy. He knew that the success of United Cinemas came from selling a complete experience. He saw that Max Brenner, at its heart, was also an entertainment brand. The two businesses were perfectly aligned, making Max Brenner the ideal pre-movie treat or post-movie destination. Today, Max Brenner still exists in Australia, a survivor of a wild 2-decade-long roller coaster. It's a very different company from its peak in the early 2010s. There are fewer stores. The international ambitions are gone. The brand is now entirely Australian-owned and independent from the few remaining stores in Israel and the US. But what remains has managed to find a new, quieter relevance. While Max Brenner no longer dominates food culture, it has settled into a lasting and nostalgic niche. The stores feel a bit calmer now, with an atmosphere defined more by comfort than by buzz. The brand has gracefully stepped back from screaming for attention, focusing instead on quietly serving its mugs of molten chocolate to a new generation, and to the old one that never really stopped loving it. The original Max Brenner concept was always more of a fantasy than a sustainable long-term business. Fantasies, by their nature, rarely survive the harsh realities of financial collapses, geopolitical protests, and massive cultural shifts. But somehow, this one did. It was stripped back, scaled down, and lives on, still serving sugar-soaked nostalgia, one hug mug at a time. But what do you think? Is Max Brenner's survival in Australia just a sweet nostalgia trip, or was it a brilliant business pivot by its new owner? Do you still find yourself craving a hug mug, or have you moved on to artisan gelato and other modern dessert trends? Let us know your thoughts in the comment section below. And if you enjoyed this breakdown, don't forget to like, subscribe, and tap that notification bell so you don't miss out on our next video. Thank you guys so much for watching, and as always, stay curious.